Have a watch of this clip of Piers Morgan talking to Megyn Kelly about the situation in Gaza. Piers has taken a very anti-Israel stance. He'll deny it, of course, but what he does is, as Ami Kozak said, he says, well, I support Israel's right to defend itself, but I think what they're doing is unconscionable. Basically, Israel's not allowed to do things it needs to. But then Megyn Kelly pushes back on this. She said, I would support what Israel's doing, and even using disproportionate force against Gaza to teach them a lesson, to make sure that they never think that they could ever do such a thing like this again. But she says, and she's also saying, by the way, that she's very skeptical of the reporting coming out of Gaza. Having said that, at the same time, she says, but I do think this is going on too long. I want to show you what they have to say, and then we'll unpack this.
I think you can be supportive of Israel's right to defend itself. And you can support what Israel did with Hezbollah and what they did with Iran, as I have done. But also be incredibly concerned by these images coming out of Gaza now of starving people. Where do you sit with this, Megyn? Because it is complex. I don't for a moment suggest this is easy in any way. But where do you sit with what is going on now with Gaza?
Well, I'm always reluctant to put too much stock in the images coming out of Gaza, that phrase, because they're manipulated and they're masters of propaganda, and they're fine having their own children starve just as long as they can put them on camera and show them off to the world. That's Hamas. And frankly, it's a lot of Palestinians. So I'm very skeptical of taking those images at face value and saying it's Israel's fault. Having said that, it's time. It's time now. Israel, whether it realizes it or not, has made itself the villain of the world in letting this thing go on so long. They have lost support amongst their dearest friends. And even the entire Democrat Party here in the United States has turned against them, and they're losing Republicans by the day here in America, which is their most important ally. So whether the fight continues to be just or not is almost irrelevant. As Trump said when he was running this time last year, not yet elected, time to wrap it up. And that's how I feel, too. And I've given Israel a long berth. I fully understand, as an American who was attacked on 9/11, my country was that, when you attack the United States and you kill thousands of our citizens, and Israel was in this position on 10/7, it's fine to respond, and it doesn't have to be proportionate. Whoever said it has to be proportionate? It can be overwhelming force to teach a lesson to any enemy. You mess with us, it's going to be extremely painful, disproportionately painful for you. I have no problem with that. But what Israel's doing now is losing its standing with the rest of the world. And it can sit in its corner and claim that it's morally justified and it has the, upper hand and all. But it's too late. It's lost. It's starting to lose, too, even with its closest friends, its moral reputation, its moral high ground. And as Trump said a year ago, time to wrap it up.
So it's interesting what Megyn Kelly is saying. First of all, she's acknowledging that we have to be very cautious with the reporting that we're seeing coming out of Gaza. There's so much fake news there. That's point number one. Point number two, however, is she's saying Israel should have used and has the right in her mind to use disproportionate force. Meaning it's not about you take 250 hostages, so we'll take 250 hostages. No, you do what you need to do to destroy them. But she says the whole thing's going on too long. Now, the reason why it's going on so long, part of the reason, is because Israel is being so surgically precise in getting Hamas, who are so embedded in their civilian population, and that takes a very long time. But the interesting thing is that the moral way to fight a war? That's what the West tells Israel they should be doing, is the right way to fight a war. But the West finds that unacceptable. And on top of that, they then say this whole thing's taking too long. What's interesting, though, is what Megyn Kelly said earlier on, I think actually, is the Jewish way. War should not take a long time. Otherwise, you end up having a whole generation that knows only war. On both sides. It's bad for both sides. She is picking up on something that I think is true. That what Israel should be doing and should have done is right after October 7th to go in with overwhelming, yes, disproportionate force. Proportionate should mean not proportionate to what you did and I'm going to do an equal amount back. Proportionate should mean proportionate to bring about peace. And that should mean if they could have gone in hard, fast and comprehensively to destroy Hamas. And then people say, well, what about civilians? What about the hostages? If you fight like that, if you let Hamas determine the way you fight, which by the way ends up leading to loads more of your own people dying as soldiers, and you end up losing international support. I'm not saying we should base our military fighting on what the international community think of us. But it just happens to be that if you fight for a very long time like this, you do lose their support. So if we would have gone a lot more comprehensive, fast, and not let the way Hamas use human shields determine how we fight, I think the international community would have supported that, even if it would have dealt a much harder blow to Gaza. If you let Hamas determine the way in which you fight, you're negotiating with terrorists. You are negotiating with terrorists. You're letting them determine the rules of engagement. If you release thousands of criminals in return for your hostages, you incentivize them to take more hostages. Well, I think it's unfair for the West to be upset with Israel at the time it's taking, because the only reason it's taking so long is because Israel is trying to do things the way the West say is moral. But I think what Megyn is tapping into is that what we know to be true, and what the Torah teaches is true, is that the way you fight a war is to be swift and overwhelming and comprehensive. Interesting, by the way, that Piers says, well, I had no problem with what they did with Hezbollah or Iran. I get so bothered by this because, yes, on the one hand, they were very quick wars in the end, but he seems to have no recognition for the fact that with Hezbollah, he sits there in his studio and he's like, oh, why can't they do a pager attack with Hamas like they did with Hezbollah? Does he have no recognition of the fact that the Hezbollah attack took so many years of planning? Israel came across an extremely rare opportunity where they saw them getting these pages, so they thought, well, let's jump on this. But these opportunities don't happen every day. And they were caught off guard with Hamas, and they didn't have that opportunity. So why do you think that, therefore, because they couldn't do that, what they're doing with Hamas is a deliberate ploy to exacerbate as many Gazan casualties as possible? Why'd they be sacrificing hundreds of their soldiers' lives who were going in there if they didn't want to be as precise as possible? And he said, well, look what they did with Iran. There weren't civilian casualties there in Operation Rising Lion. Yeah, because Iran doesn't put its soldiers and people in tunnels under their schools and mosques. Their nuclear sites were off-site. Can you not understand that this is not to do with Israel? And what Piers Morgan is doing is he's trying to create a narrative that says it is Israel who is the one that somehow has a bloodlust against the Gazans. It's sick. And actually what he's doing is he's caving to the mob. That's what Piers Morgan always does. He caves to the mob of pressure and feelings on any side of an argument so he can be as well liked as possible. And as a result, he is playing directly into Hamas's hands. Before we finish, I just want to share with you something really important. We are told that Israel's actions are the cause of the Israeli-Arab conflict. But we've just released a groundbreaking documentary proving that Arab Islamic Jew hatred far predates Israel's re-establishment. This is a critical fact that everyone needs to learn about. Have a watch of our trailer for our new JTV Plus documentary entitled Arab Anti-Semitism Before Israel's Re-Establishment. Picture yourself, it's 1834 and you're a Jew living in Tzfat, which is a northern city in Israel, then under the Ottoman Empire. Your family is part of this ancient city's spiritual heart for generations. You study Torah, you trade in the market, and live quietly among your Arab neighbours. But one day, a mob storms your street, shouting, "Kill the Jews!" Your home is looted, your synagogue burned, your loved ones beaten. This isn't about Israel. Israel won't exist for 114 years. This isn't about settlements, the IDF, or the 1948 displacements. This is raw, violent hatred aimed at you for being a Jew. And it's not just in Palestine, it's part of a centuries-old story of anti-Semitism woven into Arab and Islamic history, from the dawn of Islam to the streets of Hebron. The claim that this conflict began with Israel's creation, the Nakba, or modern policies, is a farce, a distortion that collapses under history's magnifying glass. Welcome to JTV Plus. I'm Ollie Annisfeld, and today we're uncovering a history too often buried, the relentless anti-Semitism among Arabs in Palestine before 1948, rooted in a broader Arab and Muslim hostility that began with Islam's inception in the 7th century. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.